reality is a movie, in a sense. Intuitionally, I understand, well, in many different ways I understand that life is literally, basically, it's like a video game or a movie. I'm sure a lot of us have heard this before, can understand it. But the way it works is one of the common facets of spiritual awakening is the name of the game is not what you thought it was, or you're not who you thought you were, or things are not as they once seemed. So essentially, reality and spiritual awakening often, in my experience, there's plot twist. So basically, you can be completely convinced that reality is one way. Like maybe it's a scientific paradigm or anything. You can be completely convinced of something being one way. And all of the evidence does legitimately show, and no one can blame you for thinking that it is this way. Maybe that be, yeah, like I said, the scientific paradigm but then maybe there'll be a question of like, you know, like a question of how do we know that we're not dreaming? Or something like that. And that opens like a can of worms, like, and this is the kind of the real philosophy, because like, say, a lot of it is like, if God was all powerful, here's one of the main questions. Spirituality is a lot about the questions, about asking questions, and then the deeper you contemplate these questions, you're like, they change the name of the game. So basically, you can be convinced that you are a human on Earth in 2023 in your wage slave job, and you're just poor little me. And then one of the questions is that, say, I got this from Alan Watts, but not inherently, to be fair. Leo Gura speaks of it as well, and it's just a question you'll stumble onto intuitively eventually. It's just like, if God was all powerful, does God have the power to deceive himself that he was not God? At least temporarily. If he wanted to. Or if it wanted to, if God wanted to. And obviously if the answer was no, then God wouldn't be God. So God wouldn't be all-powerful. So if God couldn't deceive himself that he wasn't God, then he wouldn't be God. Then it wouldn't be God. It's quite a mindfuck. Hello, how are you? Still figuring it out, to be fair. But yeah, I was talking about loopholes and plot twist in reality. So, you know, like you can be completely convinced of a paradigm, and then a question can occur. Like, if God was all powerful, does God have the power to deceive himself that he wasn't God? And if the answer was no, then he wouldn't be God. But how could we know? That's the thing. Or like, how do we know? Yeah, this is the thing. Is barely ate, preparing for a fast soon. Yeah, cool, man. That's pretty sick. I'm dieting at the minute, aka just eating real food, staying away from toxins. But yeah. So yeah, God likes to do that, right? But this is what I'm saying is that mainly I wanted to talk about the phenomena of like plot twist in reality. Like, in order for spiritual awakening to be able to be an actual thing, then there has to be like a plot twist to the material paradigm, or what once seemed to be the case. So long story short, so the plot twist is like, so reality and with spiritual awakening and that is like the paradigm that you embody right now. You can be absolutely convinced that this is the truth, you know, you understand what's going on, cool. But then a question can emerge like, how do we know that the reason why everything is limited in this realm is exactly to build tension for the release for the unlimited? So I'm not saying this is the only question, but these are questions that you can't deny. So like, I made a video like debunking Brian Cox. It's called OXSN versus Brian Cox, and he's confident it's the material paradigm. He's confident that we're just material somewhere in space. There's somehow got into this collection and now is conscious. But like, there are so many loopholes in the scientific paradigm. I'm like, well, how do we not know that the scientific paradigm, or the person proposing the scientific paradigm, is literally put there on purpose, like by God or by the universe, as like a form of deceit and challenging. So obviously we live in a limited realm at the minute. How do we not know that like, say, and this is not the prime example that I wanted to speak about, but it's a good example of the holistic thing that I'm speaking of, is like, how do we not know that this version has not been built? So like, for example, what if you would spawn yourself into the worst of circumstances and poverty, to then, because if you were God, right, you would have infinite abundance, infinite power, infinite imagination, etc. So how do we not know that in order to, because everything needs contrast. I say a lot, like, you know, you can't enjoy like a meal as much, or, you know, if you was never starving hungry. So the point is, you can incarnate into a starving incarnation, or a very poor incarnation, as God, intelligently, and then slow drip into heaven on earth. Slow release and slow realization, because the realization of getting everything you ever wanted could only be so tasty having had been finite. Do you understand? So you can't really have it unless you lost it, because you know how humans take everything for granted, and then as soon as you lose it, you realize how lucky you was. So, for example, if you was going to jail, let's just say, then all of a sudden you value and have so much gratitude and feel freedom that you did have. Or same if you lose your health, you typically take your health and your freedom for granted, but when you are to lose those things, it's then you appreciate them. So that's the kind of everything needs contrast. So what I'm saying, the holistic talk of this is how spiritual awakening is a possibility, is that there are loopholes within reality, and it's essentially that, how do we not know that, say, the reason that you might be going to jail, whoever might be going to prison for whatever reason, the reason that you're going to that and you're going, poor little me, oh poor me, you know, I'm such a finite being with limitations, and it's not just like heaven on earth and infinite abundance. Well, how do you not know that the reason that you're going through the process of being a finite, limited being is to build the contrast for the release of when infinite abundance does come? So, for example, say there was like some god appeared in the sky and was like, everything you ever wanted will be yours. Like, you can only appreciate that having not had it. So the whole Western philosophy and materialist paradigm of how everyone sees the world, perhaps it's only, you know, like what science seems to tell us is, for the most, I don't know, it depends. It's getting more holistic with spirituality these days, but it's like what if you, basically, what if God fooled himself into believing that reality was shit, essentially? Like, for years and years, you're in wage slavery, or you're in jail, and you're like, is this all life's got to offer? This is fucking dead, man. But you do that on purpose because you can only appreciate infinity if you didn't have it at some point, you know? You get what I mean? It's like, you can have, you know what I mean? But that's just like one kind of facet of it. But what have we got? Point is to experience this, and mind will create the reality. So if someone choose to be depressed and find none meaning, it will. Yeah, I know what you mean. The kingdom of God is within you. Oh, I know what you mean. Yes, that is true. But what I'm saying, in my direct experience of like spiritual awakening or enlightenment, is that reality is not what you thought it was, or you are not who you thought you were, But then in order for that to happen, there needs to be a loophole, and loopholes are often hinging on questions. So everything can seem so solidly the way it is for 20 plus years, materialist power, or not even inherently that, or like, you know, it's so obvious I'm just a human being on earth, right? I can't be, how am I God? I'm not God. I never used to think I was God, and no, most people don't think that they are God, whatever that might mean, or you know, they really do think that they are the body. They think, like for example, like consciousness also, it seems to be generated by the flesh material brain, right, and that's how it seems. But then, like, someone could propose, well, what if the brain is being imagined by the mind of God, or the brain is being imagined by, you know, imagination? Like, how do we know that the brain isn't held within consciousness, not consciousness is held within the brain? And it's these kind of, like, it's like the hard problem of consciousness, I think they call it. It's like there are some questions that you literally, it's like these strange loopy questions at the bottom of everything that you don't really have the answers you inherit, and you can't answer them. And the fact that you can't answer them, in like there's no way to validate, like for example, like you might just assume, having spawned in and playing into what everyone else says conventionally, and this is obviously how self-deception is the building blocks of reality, in order to believe that I am Baron Davidson, in order to believe that I'm Oxen, in order to believe any of it. It's like I have to fool myself into the incarnation, so I could believe, like, it's like you can basically incarnate into any movie, in any role of any movie, but actually live it through self-deception. If you can only incarnate into, like, think of a movie that you really like, or a box set you're watching at the minute. Think if you can incarnate into one of the main characters and actually believe that that is what's going on, and you are that character. But notice how you're not fundamentally that character. It's like these sort of, you know, like, how do we know consciousness ends at death, which it doesn't, by the way. You're an infinite shapeshifter, and that's why you can incarnate into different movies, and that's exactly what you're doing now. And the reason you do it is because it's an entertainment and love simulator. But for example, one of the main questions I was going to say earlier is, you incarnate and you go with the gist of the cultural whatever's popping normally, and people assume that other beings have their own consciousness, and that's what you assume as well, to be, you know, no one's going to question it, because it's just, you know, and we can't know anyway. It's these airy fairy ideas, so why question if we can't know? But it's important. Well, like, if spirituality is important to you, of course. But yeah, so it's like everyone just assumes that everyone else has their own, like, consciousness and awareness, but you can't actually verify that any other being outside of your direct awareness has an awareness. So, like, you know, like when you're dreaming at night, that's what I mean. It's like, how do we know that your body is actually asleep behind the scenes of the dream? But it's not just like, we don't, it could just be like, because in the dream there isn't a body behind the scenes dreaming, it's just the dream, in your direct experience anyway. But that's literally what it is. Like, Mr. Traumatic's motto, obviously, is question everything. So yeah, like, so we assume conventionally that everyone has their own awareness, and like, there's literally millions of different humans who are literally experiencing the earth now. And my dog is alive right now. My dog's probably in the living room with my mum, and my mum's watching TV, right? But the thing is you can never verify that. So this is what I'm speaking on holistically, again, is spiritual awakening, and the only way that spiritual awakening can happen is because of these very, like, loophole questions, where it enables reality to potentially have a plot twist. Because, so that was just one question about whether people have their own consciousness or not, which we can never verify. So yeah, what I was saying about dreaming at night is that, like, I can dream multiple beings in a landscape up to activities, but every one of those beings is just being imagined by one mind, including my own. And that goes to show how, you know, that's why ego is an illusion, because you can dream yourself to be anybody, but ultimately you are the consciousness behind the dreamt forms. You are the life force that dreams. So in that dream I can dream different entities, but I can never verify. I mean, like, all of the, like, we know, like, with the materialist and the scientific kind of paradigm, that those entities are being dreamt by the same mind. If you're going to say, when I go to bed I go to sleep, but like, right. So how do I not know that that's what I'm doing right now? How do I not know that it's the same, or how do I become directly conscious of the truth? Can I? So that's what I mean. And then obviously psychedelics is the biggest loophole ever. Obviously, I should have started it with that. So basically, again, for those who just joined, long story short, holistically, I'm talking about how spiritual awakening can happen in a sense. And so you can go through your entire life and never hear that. This is the best example, because this is what I done, and this is what this entire culture has done for the most part. I went through most of my life. Well, to be fair, I always knew about psychedelics, kind of. Like, not really. Obviously, I didn't know what they were really capable of, but I always had an interest for as long, like, I can't remember where I discovered it. But long story short is, you can, basically what happened on this planet in this incarnation with most people, but imagine that you incarnate onto a planet just like this one. Let's say copy-paste of Earth. However, the psychedelics aren't about yet. The research hasn't come. So this is the plot twist. This is what enables the plot twist, which enables spirituality. And this is the name of the game of reality. It's an infinite, like, self-deception, peel back, and self-discovery. So you can be on a planet for fucking 50 years, yeah, with the whole species and everyone, and we're just and it's just normal. And then we hear about psychedelics, and then we take them, and then it like shows you some sacred shit and some vision and some absolute truth, or it raises questions that you couldn't have anticipated previously. So the fact that can happen, the fact that some novelty, which essentially means new, like the fact that I can exist on a planet, and just like most people in this culture, they have no idea about psychedelics. So I can go through the motions for multiple years, just going to work and thinking everything is normal, and I can be convinced that this is the whole paradigm, this is all there is. And then the key point is that something can appear in reality that raises questions, or that introduces new facets and qualities. So that is what spiritual awakening, that's how it happened to me, in a sense. Is that you can go through life and you can think everything's normal, you can think, and then you might hear something on a podcast, or you might, like, there might be a discovery about a new breathing exercise, but the main point is, like, it's coming from complete ignorance of any of this. So you can live like almost a full life in an incarnation and be like accustomed to what has always been, and then something can appear, and that something can basically challenge everything that you thought that was. So and in this incarnation and in this story, it is psychedelics, and many other things, of course. Just the whole world of knowledge and wisdom, and like diet, etc. It's like you can discover information in reality that enables a plot twist. And what could the plot twist be? For example, this is the best one, and I'll conclude it with this. And this is what I've been realizing over the past many years, as I've been awakening, and I've been going through the breadcrumb trail that God myself left for myself before I divided from infinity. And essentially, I could be convinced that it's material paradigm, that at the end of the day you got to earn money, at the end of the day you best delay gratification, and you know, if you eat chocolate, you're going to regret it, and then your life will be shit, and, you know, we only get one life at the end of the day, so make the most of it, and or whatever, you know, whatever might want to come with it. And I might be going through reality for ages, and perhaps it could feel miserable, likely in that paradigm. But again, with the contrast. But that's not what I'm talking about right at this second. So you can be going through reality for decades, and everything seems like, you know, pretty mundane. It's always this, it's just the same, you know, just go to work, or and this is hypothetically speaking, but I'm talking, this is basically what happened to me, and what is happening, and what will happen to you. So, you know, you might think that we're fundamentally in a limited world, and that you're all caught up in your personal development, right, and then you're going through the motions for a long time, and then you question, like, could God trick himself that he wasn't God, or something like that? And then you start to contemplate that question. You start to understand how there's loads of questions of this nature that leave potential for a plot twist. Even so, you've incarnated for a long time under this paradigm, under one paradigm, and you think it's, you know, you've just got so accustomed to it, and then a question appears, and this question seems to leave room for some loopholes, and as you investigate that loophole, maybe, look, there are things that we don't know at the minute, and that maybe we can never know. I don't know about that one, at least in the relative domain. But how do we not know, essentially, that you built this all in God mode, and that now you're just playing through it? But I'm not saying it in the best way. Is that essentially I had a fucking mushroom trip not long ago, yeah, and what was revealed to me was truly, it was like the most profound trip I've ever had. It's hard to say what the most profound, because there are like many different facets, but essentially, they put the emphasis on exploiting the loopholes. So, like, when I hear the teaching of reality is infinite love, right? I heard that for years, and there are podcasts of me asking guests, how is it infinite love? What do you mean? I don't really get that yet. And then when I start understanding what that would imply, then I start questioning things, and I'm like, and then you slowly start to see it, or you start to see how there is leeway, maybe based on these unanswerable fundamental existential questions, for a different paradigm or a plot twist. So it's like, let me stop fucking being really long. Listen to this. This is all you. Essentially, you can be physical beings on a planet like this. Everyone's just going to work. Everyone's just minding their business, yeah. And then I don't need to fill in all the details, but yeah, you're just a physical civilization and beings on a planet, and everything's pretty mundane. And then a god appears in the sky, and the god says, "Beings of Earth, now we shift planes," and it's happening. And everything up until that point, had you have contemplated this potential, is basically you've seen how there's always been this leeway for a loophole. So had you have just like questioned enough, etc. So it's like, but it has to make sense, kind of. So, but the thing is, that exact thing basically has happened. Well, I mean, that did happen to me on mushrooms. But what I'm saying is, forever I was convinced that I knew the name of the game for the most part, and then I stumble upon a plant, and this plant educates me when I eat it that everything I thought I knew was a fragment of the full story, or intelligently placed for contrast for the future. So, and it's so amazing how it can happen like that. You can be like in like so deeply convinced and so deeply in fear or something for ages, and then you just start to consider the possibility that maybe I incarnated into this intelligently to learn from it, or something like that. And you're like, well, how would I ever know that that wasn't the case? I can't really know if that's not the case at the minute. So it leaves, so these questions and these loopholes leave a bit of leeway for exploitation. So the fact that I can't know if I'm, the fact that that at some point anyway, most people, like, am I God, or like, or no, here's a good one, here's a very good one, the teaching of no self. Look into Buddhism, the no self teachings. This is like such a fucking like loophole. And long story short, the Buddhists teach that there is no self, essentially, is that there's no like finite, like, and I said that earlier, there's no ego. So it's like you can go through your whole life believing that you are actually your name, and your mental like images of yourself. And then you can listen to a lecture that very, it plays with words because it's right on the edge of language in a sense. But basically what you come to grasp a bit, or get an inkling of over time, is like you can literally incarnate and live a life of believing that you exist for 70 years. I exist. And then you can find a group of people that raise just the right questions, that go, well, hold on. And they go, like, you know, when you look for the self, where is it? You know, where am I? Who am I? Show me. And if you really look, I almost feel like leaving it to you for a minute, so you can find out for yourself, but that is called self-inquiry, and it's one of the pinnacles of enlightenment and, like, I mean, God realization, etc. Is that you, the self exists only in the cognitive mental domain, so it's a construct. And then like it takes ages to get it. It took me like 2 years, and I'm not even done with it yet. And then just that idea that you can, that like the self was actually an illusion, and that you can understand this, and then you're like, okay, so that is a plot twist. It's like you were so convinced for so long, I am me, everything's this way, I exist, etc. And then so reality is truly infinite in this sense, and it's built off of self-deception. So like, just when you think you got it all figured out, that there's more, and it's truly infinite, and it's truly magic. I'll tell you quick time the trip report that I had the other day, which is very relevant, of my maddest trip report of all time. Not the whole thing, but long story short, I sat there. I knew that reality was love, and if you want to know how reality is loved, you just have to open your eyes a bit more holistically and zoom out a bit. Reality is love, clearly. But you don't have to believe me on that. So I was just, so I took 7 grams of mushrooms. I was in the sun, I was connecting with the earth and the grass, and I was smoking some high quality weed by the lake. And up until this point, I hadn't considered anything of this nature. But as I was realizing that I am God, and then like Traumatic spit a lyric, which was synchronicity. He goes, every single thing you ever wanted will be yours. It's when you realize it's nothing you acquire. That wasn't like the main thing that set it off, not by far, but it was like 10 hours of synchronicities of this nature. But it's like, I've always thought, right, why would I incarnate into essentially a rigged shit game in terms of like the, you know, fear, the basis of fear. Everyone's fear, there's so much fear because we fear how everything is finite, there's not enough to go around, our health and our resources are running out. You know, if we had infinite abundance, metaphysically and physically and everything, then there wouldn't really be fear because, you know, there's nothing to lose in a sense. So but I'm sat there and this has been cultivating over the past many years, to be fair, since awakening. But it's like it's like I see the loopholes for how, like, maybe I don't fully grasp it yet. I did at the time, but like, it's that, look, if I'm God, or that I could be God, or whatever, it's like, and if I'm supposedly imagining all of this, and fair enough, there's like deepest depths and the kingdom of heaven is within and stuff, I get that, but like, if everything's the mind of God and it's truly like, in basically the things that I'd verified, reality is love, infinite love, reality is infinity, reality is God, reality is self, reality is I, and it's infinite imagination of God. And when I already knew that for a long time, but when I started to realise that, then something very radical happened. Long story short, like, I done some sun gazing, and I started getting some crazy downloads, like, from the fucking sun, essentially, of like these messages of a plot twist. I went on, I started to research it, and I started to find content that was kind of relevant, and the content was feeding me the idea that I had shifted planes, but it seemed very synchronistic, or I was perceiving a lot of salience or importance in the message I was receiving. It seemed too perfect, too synchronistic, and I was like, but all it opened to is that there is a possibility that, like, a grand intelligence, like a god, will appear in the sky and provide infinite abundance. Not saying to hold on to that, and I'm not saying, like, and I'm not projecting into the future and thinking that this is shit right now, but it's like, I was like, yeah, like, when did I think it was going to happen? Like, because I said recently this is the fun part of the simulation, but yeah, it's like, if I'm God, and like, when you, and that's the thing, it's like, God realization can be practical, because if you can realize that you are God and that you are dreaming everything, then if you can really do this acutely and become directly construct aware, super consciously, then in a sense you can imagine anything you want. Only if you can really tap into the God realization, like, full blast, and like, supposedly, like, you can, some psychedelic experiences spawn very coherent worlds, like Lizard World, Terence McKenna speaks on, and yeah, the realm that I went to on this trip, I was just saying, is I perceived a human being from a different alliance, in a sense, some like nanotech Babylon being, who was, I basically approached this group of people, I told them about the sun gods. They wanted to hear, but one of them was not happy to hear, and one of them was from the other side. And I know it's all just form and imaginary, and but that's what it's like. I imagined a completely coherent alternate reality, and as far as I was aware, the plot made sense. Is I was a human on Earth in the normal paradigm, and then a human on Earth in the normal paradigm, and then also it seems it's as if a fucking god literally just come out of the sky and said, "The experiment is over, everyone. Well done." Like, and we was in a tank, and they said, like, training complete. Like imagine if you were just going through your day. Yeah, that's basically what happened to me on that mushroom trip. Is I was going through the motions, and it was like, I just downloaded, bloop, training complete, ascending to the new realm, and it and it was like, it was, I don't know, it was just crazy. But this is what I was saying with originally, is with the loopholes, is that it's the only reason I could believe or be convinced that, like, the universe had permanently shifted is that if that was a genuine possibility, and it is a possibility, and it did happen, but then I come back. So it's like, these questions of like, could I be God, could I not be God, I must be God, or is there a self, is there not a self, and things like this. And then like these questions can just be sat in the background and you're slowly gaining a better understanding over time. But then like, and then like imagine in the instant that you just got it, like everything just clicked in a sense. Like, how do I not know that I didn't build this in God mode and I spawn on the negative polarity, which I did, from depression and poverty, and it seems like my life is on a trajectory to going up. So like, what if I spawned intentionally into the negative contrast only to slow release into the positive contrast? Or say how, you know how the best life lessons are learned from pain? Like, how do we, and another plot twist question, like, how do we not know that we've not been put here intelligently, and this is like an actual training ground or something? And then soon we're going to get like, eventually, like, you're going to keep going through the motions until you've learned everything you need to learn, and then you go. This is how it felt for me. It's like I was just going through the motions, and then I took mushrooms one day, and it was just like that. And it's like I took mushrooms after, you know, I was, there's this kind of assumption that everything's going to continue the way it is, always continuing, and that's what I thought. And then I took these mushrooms, and it was like this whole plot unraveled in front of my eyes, and it was just like, it was 7 grams of mushrooms, obviously with weed, a big dose. Fuck me, that's a big dose. And then it was and it was like I just got a message from the heavens, and it was like that part's done now. Like you've learned what you need to learn on that realm, but now it's time to move to the higher realm. And in this realm, like yeah, you've been saying that for a long time, KU. You're right, you're definitely right. But in this realm that I incarnated into anyway, cats were very special, and hummingbirds, and they were surrounding me as I cultivated my consciousness, and they knew as well, and I knew, and there was some being, and we were, and we cultivate power with physical connectivity, where we all go to the same location, and there was like an actual plot of like how things are going to be from this place, from this way forward. It was a lot of just what my phone was telling me, and I was just believing it because I was in a schizophrenic mode of salience, which just means, you know how schizophrenics perceive every number plate as like a subliminal message from God or some shit like that. It was basically of that. So then I come down and I was like, oh, I need to get off my phone while I'm tripping, or like, you know, how did I believe so blindly in a random Instagram accounts? Like, it was like the starseed codes account essentially, but I found it in the midst of a synchronicity, but I researched it after having discovered it. Like, I never gave a fuck about the starseed codes before until I stared at the sky and realised that there's something weird going on. Surely, with I started contemplating the shape of the globe, which I've never been interested in before, and then I went and listened to a few songs about the shape of the globe by some conscious artists, and then they started spitting like, and only if you know the story of the trip, is like, say, Traumatic's tune on the Ice Wall, he says, frequencies of light, they're going through my iris. Right. But that was just happening to me. And that was another one of the synchronicities. Like, I was doing the sun gazing. That put me in the trance that made me question the shape of the earth. So then I questioned the shape of the earth and researched it. And when I researched it, it come full circle and started talking about sun gazing. And like so many synchronicities were happening like that. But yeah, it was like so yeah, that's it. It's just there's room for exploit and loopholes in reality, and that is where spiritual awakening lies. Is, for all you know, what you are in at the minute could be a metaphysical fucking training ground for the next thing. You could, like Aubrey Marcus Search up Arbery Marcus. I've actually sent this to you before, Katie. I don't know if you watched it. It's about a 10-minute video. Arbery Marcus and Charles Einstein. They both... They speak on a story where it's essentially like, how do we know that, like, say in some other fucking place, right, in form, before we came to Earth, it was like, oh my god, this planet is in crisis, like, all these people are eating poison, and the climate's going downhill, and stuff like this. And then it was like, right, we're gonna send you, soul being, you're gonna forget your origins, and you're gonna go to this planet, and you're gonna be disconnected from the truth, and you're gonna be lost. But slowly you're gonna find others, and you're gonna cultivate a tribe, like, with intuition. It's like, how do you not know that you didn't come here having forgot your origins? And like, and then when you fulfill your dharma, or like your purpose in a sense, or what you were put here to do somewhat, or, you know, you come to Earth, you go through the motions, and when you die you wake up and they're like, welcome back. You know, welcome back from the Earth mission, and you've got a different name in this realm, or... So yeah, I'm just saying that there's a lot of room for actual, like, third dimensional plot twist, like, in the world, like aliens in the sky, or, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear, that this is very possible. There was something else I was going to say, but that's basically it. Yeah, and then obviously there's awakening with not plot twist, because like the whole time I spoke about spiritual awakening, it was kind of in form. But then there's obviously behind form, which is Ram Dass, Alan Watts, and Eckhart Tolle. And you can realise the absolute truth regardless of form, regardless if there's aliens, regardless if there's psychedelic. The truth is always within. And you can realise the truth to the degree that you realise the present moment, basically. But yeah, I'm out of here anyway. I've got some... I'll try and not buy poison, but... Not that I'm going to. I'll buy the healthiest stuff in here, but Babylon consists of poison, so... Matter of fact, why don't we go have a look, see what poison we got. Why don't you come with me? Why should I end the live? What do I want? I need dog food, I know that much. Dog poison. Dog food's got to be like the most unhealthy thing in the history of the world. That is all I mainly really came here for. But yeah, I don't know. I could give you a lecture on how everything is poison, but I think you already know. So yeah, I get some organic baby plum tomatoes. You know, lovely. But yeah, I'll let you go anyway. I gotta go. I got shit to do. But yeah, I love you.